You're all welcome to be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So my question for today is, what does it mean to bless someone? We are saying we are going to bless someone. First of all, what context is that in for us? And what does it mean when we say we're going to bless someone? What do you think? Michal?
Well, from that moment and onwards, it's a hope for goodness.
I like it. It's a hope for goodness. Good. What else? What does it mean to bless someone? Let's think about the times that we bless someone. What times, when do we bless people? When you sneeze, right? And you say, bless you, right? What do we mean when we say bless you? What's that again? Wish them well, right? Maybe we're going to say Gesundheit, right? Good health, right? There was a worry that a sneeze in some way would harm a person. There's a lot of different explanations for what that is. Maybe you're losing potentially a part of your soul, something like that. And so you're actually wishing that person well. You're hoping that that person is going to be okay after the sneeze. What else do we bless people? Eric?
We bless our children on Friday evenings to give them strength from their ancestors.
Excellent.
Ensure that they're covered, if you will.
Excellent. We bless our children traditionally on Friday evenings. We give them strength. We make sure that they're protected. We make sure that they're covered. Good. We're going to talk about that very blessing in just a few moments because it comes from our Parashat. Milt. At their wedding, right? At their wedding, we offer a blessing. You're going to see me offer a blessing to Ariel a little bit later on today, right? So when we as Jews bless somebody, what's the purpose then of that blessing?
Well, I'm going to come back to every blessing we say is Baruch Atah Adonai, which is blessed are you, our God, right? And therefore, creating and pulling those who we bless back to a godly setting.
Good. So actually, Eric mentioned something which I think is really important. You mentioned that blessings in Judaism start Baruch Atah Adonai, right? Praised are you, Lord our God. And we offer blessings for all sorts of things, and yet it's not directed at a person. It's actually directed at God. The words really literally mean, blessed are you, God, right? It's not towards a person. And yet, what we're talking about here, whether we're blessing our children, whether we're saying bless you after somebody sneezes, whether when the priests get up, this is where I thought you were going to go with this, Eric, right? Whether the priests get up and they bless the nation, right, with a blessing, it's a different sort of thing. It doesn't, first of all, have the formula of praised are you, Adonai, blessed are you, God. It's a different thing, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at today. We recognize that the blessings that start Baruch Atah Adonai are there to help us capture moments in our life, right? It's there to say, oh, we're eating. Maybe we should have some gratitude. Oh, it's Shabbat. Maybe we should light candles so that we recognize that, right? Oh, we see a beautiful rainbow. Maybe we should capture that moment. There's a blessing for a rainbow, by the way, right? So all of those blessings help us capture moments. But I would argue that the blessings that we're talking about are more. It's not about capturing a moment. It can be. I mean, certainly, if you are blessing your children on Shabbat, it's a moment that we want to capture. Absolutely, right? I still bless my children, right, when they're both happen to be home, right? I've got a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old. It still allows me to capture that moment on Shabbat and to be able to be there with them. But there's more than that. So what is a purpose of a blessing? Michal? Protection.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. So let's look at our classic example of a blessing in this week's Parsha. You can find it on page 804 in your Humashim, in the larger of the red books that are in front of you. It's sort of in the middle of this week's Parsha. Just after all the rules of a Nazirite, which is a whole different conversation, we see, Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, God spoke to Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, the Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord deal kindly and graciously with you. The Lord bestow his favor upon you and grant you peace. So what do we learn from this blessing? If I am the recipient of this blessing, what am I receiving? You're allowed to answer, by the way. Milt. Protection, right? Protection is definitely a part of this. Good. What else? So we've got protection, grace, and peace, right? Those are the three things that we have here: protection, grace, and peace. Eric?
So in looking at the words themselves and the word blessing, right? Sam ma'ana elecha, yasem lecha shalom. You can look at the roots of those and talk about how God will show his face to you and bring you wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to bestow favor and peace. It's more, all the words have different meanings, as we very well know. So it's, he's going to show his face to you.
Absolutely. And that word peace, right, that we have in Hebrew, it's such an incredible word. It actually, shalom means hello, it means goodbye in Hebrew, right? It also means peace. It also means completion. It comes from the word shalem, which means whole, right? That you're whole. And actually, if you're interested, Rabbi Sachs has a wonderful excursus on that very idea in his book on Numbers, that peace is wholeness, and it's more than just simple peace. But what's interesting to me, Michal, go ahead.
Just noticing how everybody can look at this blessing for him or herself. It means different things to different people. It's not laid out there. It's sort of, you can find what you need in here.
Excellent. Excellent. So the Netziv, one of the rabbis who wrote Ha'amak Davar, picks up on what you're saying, Michal. And he writes as follows. It says, picking up on the fact that the blessing is recited over the whole people and is nevertheless recited in the singular. It's kind of an interesting thing, right? You're reciting this verse or these verses over the whole community, but it's in the singular, you, not y'all, right? We don't really have that in English, but, unless you're from the South. He says that the Netziv insists that the prayer here is that each person be granted the blessings that are appropriate for him or her. So it's in these general terms of protection, of grace, of peace. But the grace that I need because of the mistakes that I make might be very different than the grace that somebody else needs. The protection that I need might be different than the protection that somebody else needs. The peace that I need in my life might be very different than the peace that somebody else needs in their life. And so he argues, and this is, Michal, I think what you're saying, right? That the singular means that this blessing is focused on each person. And I would argue, by the way, that that's one of the most important things when we think about blessing somebody else. We need to start to think about what they need, not what we need. That's hard for us, right? What I think of as a blessing may not be a blessing for them. So if I'm going to offer a blessing to somebody else, let's start by understanding what they believe is a blessing, what blessings they need in their life. That's our hope. That's what we want to offer them. Miguel.
I believe that blessing maybe covers part of the stuff that you can't control. So some stuff you can control, what you can't control, be blessed for that.
Right. Right. And it definitely is a hope, right? It's a hope that those things that we can't control will ultimately break our way, so to speak, right? Will ultimately be good for us, or even when they're not, that we have the protection or the peace that we're going to be able to find through that challenging time in our life. Absolutely. Okay, yeah.
I just have a question, and I don't know if it's not a stupid one, but are there any blessings that are actually mitzvot?
Well, so the question was, are there blessings that are mitzvot? So blessings mark a mitzvah, right? That usually when they're the Baruch Atah Adonai type of framework, right? They mark a mitzvah. The question is there a blessing that is a mitzvah to say that particular blessing? With the exception of this one that we're reading about, right, where God says that the priests will bless the people, that is a mitzvah. I would say yes, right? I would say yes. I don't know off the top of my head. Rabbi Ern, do you know? Is the mitzvah, is blessing the people included in 613? I would say yes, but I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have a list in front of me.
I just got an article about that.
I don't know. It's a good question. Because I don't have it in front of me, I can't say 100% yes, but I'm going to give you a 90% yes.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to give you a 90% yes. I don't want to mislead you. But this idea of blessing, right, this is the only one that is a commandment, right? A commandment. Now we've taken that and we now bless our children, and we now bless at a wedding, we now bless at a bat mitzvah or a bar mitzvah, right? Those aren't commandments in the same way that blessing the people is a commandment by the Kohanim. Okay. So the first point that I wanted to make, and Michal, thank you for leading me to that, right, is that because, yes, it's blessing everybody, but it's in the singular, it's in the individual, we have to start by thinking about that individual. We have to start by thinking about that individual. The second question, right, is what is it that we're asking for in this blessing? We're not asking for wealth. We're not asking for power. We're not asking for, strength in might in that sort of way to defeat our enemies, right? And Rabbi Sachs mentions something at the end of one of his conversations on this that is, I think, so sublime and so powerful. He said, "We are what we pray for." We are what we pray for. And when we talk about the Jewish people and we talk about the core of who it is that we are, it actually comes back, according to Rabbi Sachs, to this blessing. We are a people that is looking for protection, because over the course of the years we've had to. We are a people who looks for a sense of grace, right? What is grace? Anybody who comes from a Christian background knows exactly what grace is. But it's not something that we as Jews talk about very often, and yet here it is. What does grace mean? God's mercy. Mercy, right? grace is a kind response even when it's not deserved, right? And that's kind of where the idea of mercy comes in, right? In Christianity, it comes from the fact that we human beings, we are all sinners, and through God's mercy, through God's grace, we have a path to salvation. That's the way that Christianity frames it. But we as Jews also have that idea of grace. We have that idea that even though we may not deserve it, God's mercy, God's love is there to give us another chance. And that's what this is talking about here. And peace. Protection, grace, and peace. We are what we pray for. We are a people who values those things. And I think it's important that we, especially in this time when there are so many competing values that we are trying to understand where they play in our life, including the value of strength and might and the value of protection and all those sorts of things. How do they play in? How do they become who we are? We start with these three. We start with these three. These are the places. We need to make sure that we are protected. We need to make sure that we show that same mercy that God shows us. And we need to pursue peace. That's ultimately, and wholeness, right? To use the fullness of the word. It's not just peace as a cessation of combat or cessation of fighting, but peace as a sense of wholeness. Those are the things that we as Jews value. Those are the things that we as Jews need to pursue. And going back to the individuality, we each of us need to find our way to add to that. Any final thoughts before we get into the actual reading of the Torah portion? And we will read this today.